All right, let's try that again. 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the launch event for the Girls Pact for the Future. We are thrilled to have you with us today, and we are eager to kick off the program. Thank you for joining. Before we start, I would like to share important safeguarding information with you. We have it on the screen, and we've also shared it in the chat. First, your participants, please only your first names or nicknames during this webinar. Your participants, please keep your video off unless you are one of the speakers. Speakers are free to keep their video on, off, or off. Please note that screen sharing for participants plus direct message by the chat box have been disabled. And also we have French and Spanish interpretation today. To access interpretation and sound, click the interpretation button located in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. From there, select your preferred language channel to enable interpretation. Hello, I'm Claudia. I'm 17 years old, and I am an activist for girls' rights, especially in the Americas. I'm very happy to be your moderator today and to be able to learn more from all of you. I firmly believe that the political participation of girls and young people is very important because it's a powerful action that rewrites our history of human rights and justice. The Girls Pact for the Future was developed through a participatory research process by the Youth Task Force, a group of people aged 15 to 24 from every corner of the world. I am one of the 35 people who has been working on this document. The Girls Pact for the Future outlines the gender equal field to see and the actions that need to be taken as part of some of the future process to get there. The pact articulates several steps needed to eliminate gender-based discrimination and create a world where girls can thrive. We believe that the change are possible and can all be made in our lifetime. And the first step is making these changes is taking girls and youth advocates seriously. Our voices and perspectives are important and need to be heard in order to shape the best possible policies for this generation and all that follow. We hope that you find inspiration and the motivation to instigate change, take proactive steps, and prioritize the future of girls and young women. At the outset, Kaylin Sherwin from Plan International will kick off the session, followed by several of my guild experts sharing sections of the path. Next, Lucia Ross from Plan International will delve into the path's related research report. This will be followed by an interactive dialogue involving 3 job representatives from the task force and representatives from UNICEF, the US government, and permanent mission of Mexico to the UN. Subsequently, our partners will share some statements to support. Following that, we will transition to a Q&A session. Please submit your questions using the Q&A feature on Zoom. Finally, we will wrap up the session. Thank you all for joining. We are excited to kick off this event. We are also excited to share that we have set up an interactive wall to capture all updates, tweets, and mentions. To make a direct post, simply scan the QR code located in the top right corner of the screen. Additionally, you can share posts about this event or the Girls Pact on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Adding the hashtag Futures Girls Want to have them appear on our wall automatically. We'll be checking in with the wall again during our Q&A session. And now, Kaden Shorin, Plan International Chiefs Strategy and Engagement Officer, will deliver the opening remarks, future explaining the importance of Girls Pact for the future and its accompanying research report.
Thanks, Claudia. Good to see you. And thank you everyone for attending. I heard that we had hundreds and hundreds of participants today for the webinar. So really just excited to see so many people from so many different countries and backgrounds together. And again, Claudia, thank you so much for emceeing today. Plan is so excited to be launching the Girls Pact for the Future and its accompanying research report today. I want to give a special shout out to our partners at UNICEF, who's co-hosting this event and has been really an invaluable partner through the entire process of developing the research and the Girls Pact. The UN Summit of the Future is being pitched as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reaffirm existing commitments and to achieve gender equality. And the question we might be asking is, why is it once in a generation? We're really facing unprecedented polarization. We have elections, we have shrinking civic space. This summit has the potential to unite us behind a common vision for a more better and equal future. It also has the potential to set the foundation for a new model, and that model is meaningful, inclusive, and participatory global decision-making with the voices of all people being heard. It's also an opportunity to level the playing field and begin to reshape power relations so that both current and future generations can thrive. And the question is, how can power holders, especially governments, those on the call today, help live up to that promise? And how can the Summit of the Future truly deliver and deliver for all? So to answer that, I want to share with you one quote from the Girls Pact from the report that we're launching today. And the quote is, "To do this, you must start by listening to our voices, take us seriously, invite us into powerful spaces, and let us influence your agendas. Hold consultations with us. Allow us to shape the policies that you want to implement because we are the ones impacted by them." End quote. Adolescents and young people, especially girls and young women, have a vision for what they want for the future, and it is powerful. It is a powerful future of gender equality and human rights for all people and the planet. And they know what needs to happen to get us there. This is what the Girls Pact for the Future that we're launching today is. It is a youth reimagined gender equal future. And we want this Girls Pact developed by young people from around the globe to be a rallying cry for other young people and partners. We want their words to be our collective vision for the future we aspire to. These very inspirational young people have challenged the rest of us to deliver meaningful change and together. And the question is, what will we do now in response? So for Plan, we will make sure that the voices of young people and their recommendations are heard loud and clear and are taken on board as member states negotiate the many important outcome documents for the Summit of the Future. And lastly, we will continue to advocate for and with them to have a seat at the table in all discussions and for the decisions taken by governments to reflect the future that this generation envisions. So I'll turn it back to Claudia, and thank you all for participating today.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for that incredible speech. Also, I would like to introduce some of my fellow peers who have been actively involved with the Girls Pact, and they will now highlight key aspects of the pact. We have 7 young speakers presenting today: Ellen here, Natalie, Ethel, Jay, Seraphine, Isabella, and Jen. Now we have Alam here.
Hello everyone. So we are the young generation from all the corners of the globals. Are you young leader, change maker, representative from the diversity by background and identity wise? As athlete of the world, we have the addressing global leaders at UN Summit of the Future. Our generation, the first of the new millennium, insists to the set a table for once in generation for the opportunity for all young generation, especially girls. We are determined to educate gender-based discrimination and inequality. Not only that, at the same time ensuring the world where girls can shape our voices, those of the resilience of commitment for the better future. Determining your attention to do exactly this action. Thank you very much.
And what is the future we want? It is a world where gender equality is not just Sustainable Development Goal number 5, but a reality that permits every aspect of society, where stereotypes and biases rooted in racism, colonialism, patriarchy, and other forms of oppression are dismantled. Black, Indigenous, Muslim, Asians, LGBTQIA+, and all marginalized communities actively shape their future, and their rights are hopeful. It is a world without violence, a world without fear. This is a future that the younger generation demands for world leaders. To do this, you must start by listening to our voices. Take us seriously, invite us into powerful spaces, and let us influence your agendas. Hold consultation with us. Allow us to shape the policies that you want to implement because we are the ones impacted by them. Thank you.
Our first recommendation talks about education and technology. Many girls and youth face barriers to quality education, including gender-based violence, societal stereotypes, and limited access to technology, especially during conflicts, wars, and natural disasters that force students, unfortunately, out of school. These issues are even worse in low-income and rural areas, mainly to both the digital and physical infrastructure being inadequate. To address this, we urge member states to ensure equal and free access to education through policies and through expanding national funding to reach the 15 to 20% benchmark. Developing an education that challenges stereotypes and promotes gender equality, education that reaches the most vulnerable and bridges the digital divide, investing in teachers and students and ensuring their safety in the roads to their school is a key for a better future.
Speaking about violence against women and girls, we see girls who feel unsafe, whether in the streets, online, in schools, in their workplaces, or in their homes, and girls who are victims of sexual violence without receiving the justice they deserve. We see homeless girls at risk of becoming victims of trafficking and sexual exploitation. We call on all member states to enact, strengthen, and enforce laws that criminalize all forms of violence against girls and women, including domestic violence, sexual violence, harassment, trafficking, harmful practices, and online technology facilitated gender-based violence, protecting girls and young women in conflict zones and settings against all forms of violence. Thank you.
We see adolescent girls become mothers too early because of lack of comprehensive sexuality education and sexual reproductive health care services. We call all member states to comprehensive sexual and reproductive health education within school curricula, and also to ensure access to adolescent-friendly reproductive health services. Thank you.
Our fourth recommendation addresses climate change. Climate change disproportionately affects women and girls, particularly those in marginalized communities, worsening existing gender inequities. Despite their vulnerability, women and girls are frequently excluded from decision-making processes, resulting in policies that may not fully meet their needs. This exclusion perpetuates disparities and undermines climate change efforts. All recommendations address gender dimension in the following ways. First, investing in environmental justice by implementing gender-responsive climate policies and fostering green technologies that benefit women and girls, such as solar energy systems and water services devices, particularly in rural and underserved areas. Thank you.
These inequalities are assumed by most as normal as acceptable because of the patriarchal nature of our societies. We have the power to change this and to rewrite the rules. This guides society because we are seldom invited to the table. When we are asked for our experiences but not our solutions. Rather, our voices listening to or acting on. So now we raise our voices loud and clear. So now we raise our voices loud and clear. We, the younger generation, refuse to accept a world where girls in all diversity are denied their fundamental rights. We must constitute and eco-create solutions with girls from diverse backgrounds across areas of public policies and decision making. Support girls to become political leaders by investing in initiatives like girls and young. So develop skills and ability and the capacity to meaningfully engage in political activism and civic life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Lucia Rhodes here. Welcome, Lucia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucia. I'm head of research at Plan International, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of the research approach and key findings. So the overall objective of the research was to situate adolescent girls and young people at the center of the discussions around the Summit of the Future, and to really highlight the need for a gender transformative approach. There were two main research questions. The first one was, should trends continue? What would the future look like for adolescent girls and young women? And the second one was, what concrete steps can world leaders take to positively impact adolescent girls and young women's futures and advance gender equality? The research involved 15 to 24-year-olds from Plan and UNICEF youth groups from all regions of the world. And they were involved as participants, but also as co-researchers. And you can see here on the slide, we used 4 different methods. We had a literature review and desk-based horizon scanning, an online survey with 124 participants, and then we had 5 3-hour-long online foresight workshops with 44 youth participants, where we used future methods like a meditative envisioning exercise, where young people imagined the future. We also used future wheels to think about the consequences of current trends. And also as part of these workshops, young people developed their own versions of the Girls Pact, which we then merged into one document. And then lastly, we had the Girls Pact validation workshops, 4 workshops, where we asked for feedback on the Girls Pact and also worked together on refining the recommendations. So the research resulted in 2 documents, both published today. We've already heard about the Girls Pact, so I'll focus on the research report, Our Voices for Our Tomorrow. The report starts off with 2 very different scenarios of the future. And the 2 scenarios were developed by young research participants. They looked at the current trends, what's happening today, and then they thought about the consequences of these trends and what that would mean in the future, looking at in 30 years' time. The first future young people imagined, looking at the year 2054, is a future of backlash and breakdown. It's dominated by anti-rights movements, conflict and climate emergencies, and increased rates of poverty. Families and the girls themselves seek child marriage as a last resort. Trying to escape violent households, some women and girls are forced to migrate, and sexual exploitation and trafficking increase. And education on gender and sex is banned, and there are high rates of early pregnancies. Girls encounter severe online abuse and misinformation, which drives them away from online platforms, and it becomes even harder for them to find a job. Their contact circle is now limited to a small group. They get less and less interested and equipped to participate in public life. and the public and policy spheres ignore girls' voices. But the analysis of current trends and possible consequences also suggests that another much more positive future is still possible. In this future envisioned by the youth participants, substantial investments in gender transformative education empower girls and boys equally, leading to the eradication of child marriage and reductions in early pregnancy rates. Schools, homes, and online spaces are safe and inclusive. Girls worldwide take their activism to their communities. Their voices are validated and bring about positive change in social and gender norms. And young women access great job opportunities. They thrive as leaders in technology, policymaking, and green jobs, and contribute to peace building and climate action. So the message coming out of the research is very clear. We need to act now to avoid this future of backlash and collapse. And the imagined future of gender equality is still possible if policymakers make the right choice now. The turning point towards the positive future that youth imagine is youth voices. Despite being concerned about where the world is headed, young people who participated in the research choose to be optimistic. The youth research participants are confident that they can bring about change. So the survey found that 75% believe that gender equality will be achieved in their lifetime, and 90% believe that they are the ones who will influence significant improvements in gender equality in the next 30 years. And there's a quote here on the slide showing that powerful optimism by an 18-year-old woman. She says, "I'm very optimistic about our future, and as much as a cruel reality we live in, I'm really hoping for the best. And actually, I believe that our generation is going to take the big steps towards a better future for all of us." Young people demand co-creation of a positive future rather than tokenistic involvement. They see the UN Summit of the Future as a key opportunity, but they also worry that girls and youth voices are excluded or are not taken seriously. So here are a couple of quotes illustrating this. One young woman said, "I feel like often those who are in decision-making spaces just listen to us for the sake of listening, for formalities. Then they do very little towards our suggestions and opinions." And another young woman said, "I think it's quite important that we talk primarily about enforcement mechanisms at the Summit of the Future. I think the summit has the possibility to be a turning point for the UN or to be its downfall." The report then ends with recommendations for policymakers. So it's very clear that young people demand from policymakers that they involve them in decision-making, and also that they reaffirm existing commitments to gender equality and the SDGs. And more specifically, young research participants developed an incredible list of really clear and concrete recommendations, and they're structured around these 4 areas that you can see on the slide. And I would urge you all to read the recommendations, share them widely, and contribute to making them become a reality. And I'd like to end with a quote from a research participant who said, "What I speak today will impact tomorrow, for my future begins with my voice today. Please listen to our voices as young people, for the decisions you make today will impact our lives tomorrow." Thank you very much. If you have any questions about the research, please put them in the question and answer box or reach out to me, and I'll hand back to Claudia now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucia, for that illuminating presentation. It's quite significant to know and learn about women in the high representation space. This important work break glass barriers and inspire more girls to research, be leaders, and create change. Now, we have an interactive dialogue between youth advocates and representatives from UNICEF, U.S. Department of State, and the Permanent Mission of Mexico to the UN. To start off our dialogue, we have Rod Raman Golder, Senior Advisor on Gender Equality at UNICEF. Rod is responsible for learning a new organizational push on adolescent girls, well-being, and leadership. She has diverse experience from many roles, and she's a passionate and committed feminist leader with a keen interest in fragile and conflict-affected contexts and a strong belief in the power of people to come together and to make change. We also have Ashel, part of the youth task force, earmarked with a degree in English language and literature. Ashel is currently pursuing an MA in audiovisual translation and accessibility studies. Ashel advocates for the elimination of employment and education gender gaps in Jordan. Her initiatives include conducting training on sustainable development goals for university students and academic settings. Ashel passionately advocates for creating spaces that embrace diversity, ensure equality, foster inclusion, and promote accessibility. Welcome,
Thank you, Claudia.
Ashel and Rob.
Thank you, Claudia. My name is Asil, and we really appreciate you joining us, Ruth, for in the lead up to the Summit of the Future. We are thinking about how important this opportunity, excuse me, we are thinking about how important this meeting is for our future. How do you think the Summit of the Future can lay the foundation for getting to a gender equal future?
Thank you so much, Asil, for the great question, and to everyone on the call and beyond who's participated in creating such a powerful vision for what can be, but also such a darkly powerful vision of what will be if we do not act. I think it's such important and powerful work. And I think this question about, how can we make the most of this opportunity? How can the Summit of the Future, the Pact for the Future, lay these very strong foundations for gender equality is key. There are three areas that I would highlight. The first is that, we know from everything that young people and especially girls are telling us, all of the data that fundamentally on the SDGs, the world made commitments and we are falling drastically behind when it comes to gender equality. And I liked what was said earlier about it's not just about SDG 5. If you pick maternal mortality, leading killer for 15 to 19-year-old girls, say, progress has stalled in many regions around the world, and we're actually losing ground. It's getting worse in some regions, for example, in Latin America and the Caribbean. HIV, 7 in 10 new infections of adolescents affect girls, and that speaks, I think, very clearly to the power imbalance. And there's a rollback on rights, and we see that many people are trying to say actually that girls are not disproportionately affected by gender inequality, but the data speaks for itself. So we need to see a resounding, very clear set of commitments to getting those SDGs back on track across the whole set of goal areas, if we're going to get towards this vision that you've so powerfully outlined. The second piece, I think, is really around the financing. Financing will be on the table, being discussed at the Summit of the Future. We need to see a drastic increase in financial commitments towards adolescent girls, the issues and priorities that you've shared, and to gender equality more broadly. And that is at multiple levels. We know from the great research that the Adolescent Girls Investment Plan has done that even for the best champion member states who are providing ODA, that less than 6% of that is tagged towards adolescence and gender. But that's a drop in the ocean. ODA is only one part of the story. What about national government commitments in their home states to this work? What about international financial institutions, the big multilateral development banks? We need to see a massive increase in those commitments towards adolescent girls. The money on the table, I think, is the best way to put it. And we know that it's a smart investment as well as the right thing to do. And then last but not least, we know that on the agenda is going to be how do we make these global decision-making processes more accessible for young people and to have representation of young people's voices. We know from a lot of experience that when we talk about children and youth, often girls and that gender equality lens gets left behind, it gets lost, and marginalized voices in so many different ways. And so if we're going to lay a strong foundation for the gender equal future that you are envisioning, we have to get that right. We have to make sure that girls and all young people's voices are adequately represented and part part of those processes. And I think just to the last point, in a meaningful way, when there is real decision-making opportunity at the table, not just kind of a sideline conversation. So I would really underline that. That's it in a nutshell from my side. I have a question for you, though. It would be great to hear your perspectives. So I know we have lots of different decision makers in the room with us today from around the world. How can leaders and decision makers address these systemic barriers so that young activists like yourself can really build on and expand on the amazing work that you have already done and the work that is coming out of the Summit of the Future? Back to you, Asil.
Thank you so much for your answer. I believe if I want to summarize my vision of it, I would say that listening to the youth, and we have seen a lot of initiatives to include the youth in the policy making, let's say, processes, but they're always limited and they're always treated sometimes or not taken seriously. So I would like, for example, to see our pact, being put on the table, being discussed, because we know what we want. We know the problems. We are facing them every day. When I go out on the street, I am facing the problems that I talked about in the future, on the Girls Pact. And I believe all of the youth that put it together also are facing the same problems. And I would say also that when we are talking about meaningful youth engagement, we have to think of the youth that cannot really access technology, they cannot access internet, the youth who are living in very far away areas, the youth who cannot even participate, especially I'm saying girls who have to stay kind of hostages in their houses because of the traditions or because of like the state of the world in general. That feels very unsafe. So like we have to think of how to include those people who we don't really normally think of, because their perspective is also important, and listening to them is also key to let's say put a policy that really reflects what they want and reflects the change that we want to see. And lastly, and we cannot really forget that, you said it perfectly, funding is very important, and the mentorship also of the, I would say, older human rights activists to have this kind of continuous conversations together, so we can learn from your experience rather than just discovering it on our own all over again, because we want to build on this work. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul. The Summit for Future represents a significant advancement in the pursuit of gender equality. It's the responsibility of states and the society to create and sustain these spaces and to implement strategies that guarantee the inclusion of girls in the development initiatives. We're also joining with Whitney Rose, policy advisor for gender-based violence and girls' priorities in the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues at the U.S. Department of State. In her role, Whitney leads the office cross-cutting children and youth policy portfolio, including efforts to prevent and respond to family genital mutilation, including until early and forced marriage. Prior to this role, she spent 5 years working for World Vision's Washington, D.C.-based advocacy and government relations team, covering child protection and violence against children, gender equality and social inclusion and basic education issues. We also have Samikshaya, part of the Youth Task Force. Samikshaya is currently pursuing her bachelor's degree in general science in addition to her academic pursuits. She actively engages with advocates for positive societal changes. Samikshaya passionately addresses critical issues such as menstrual discrimination, child marriage, and the gender disparity. Through how her advocate points, she's effectively communicates message to both in person and the social media audience. Welcome, Samishaya and Whitney.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you for joining us, Whitney. Dedicated by our voice and perspectives, we share the Girls Pact with you, with the aspiration that decision makers will take heed and enact meaningful action. So, how can we ensure that youth and children's engagement is guaranteed and protected in shaping agendas and crafting the future?
Thank you so much for that question, Samikshaya, and thank you to Plan International for organizing this event. I think this question in particular is especially important, knowing that the engagement of young people really is that's what we need to do to move the needle right towards that scenario 2 that we were talking about in the research earlier. We know that there is so much data already out there pointing us to the vital role that young people like yourselves play, particularly girls and young women, in shaping agendas for the future. But that is often a lot easier said than done, right? So speaking both as still a young person myself in this role and also an advisor in the government, I've seen firsthand how young people struggle to really get at the table. I think there's a lot of systematic barriers that exist and challenges that we face in government to really overcoming those bureaucratic and systematic challenges. So I briefly want to mention 2 opportunities that I see as opportunities to shift more power to young people and also to ensure their engagement for the future. So the first is really around shifting narratives and changing mindsets. I've seen in my role that there is still a persistent sense among member states, among governments, that the engagement of young people might be a nice thing to do, but it's not always linked to broader security, economic, or democracy issues. And this mindset has to change. We need to call more attention, I think, to the role that young people can and do play in crafting the future across issue areas and across our priorities. Young people we see are engineering new solutions to long-standing problems, finding creative ways to be heard on the issues that matter most. We've seen young leaders like many of you today that are rising up to bring attention to the climate crisis, to more equitable education, global health, and many other global challenges. In the Gambia right now, as the National Assembly is currently considering the reversal of their 2015 ban on FGM, young activists are at the forefront of organizing, circulating petitions, and raising awareness. So we know children and youth are making a difference. They're leading entire movements. They're contributing to shared priorities. But I think too often their stories go untold. And like Ruth was talking about, their initiatives go underfunded. So I think if we can successfully shift the narrative and articulate how guaranteeing young people's engagement strengthens our collective future, I think that'll be, what is key to securing their participation going forward. And the second way, briefly, I want to mention that I think we can ensure young people's engagement is by addressing process barriers. So this is the boring piece, but the important one, I think, for governments, right? So for example, for several years now, our office at the State Department has supported a youth delegate in the U.S. public delegation to the UN Commission on the Status of Women. Last year, it was represented by a Plan International youth delegate, Luna, who was absolutely fantastic. And this year, we had a young woman who's associated with the Girl Scouts. So both of those times where we worked on, bringing them to the table, one of the biggest challenges that we encountered was just around logistics. Spaces like CSW are not designed for child and youth participation. It can be tricky to think about how to cover travel expenses for a young person who may not have a bank account or credit or be able to sort of front the cost that it takes to show up in an expensive place like New York City. Aligning schedules can be very difficult when young people have school and other commitments during the 9-to-5 workday when adults are online. So it's taken some creative out-of-the-box thinking to really make this possible and to bring youth delegates into this space. But I think we are trying to lead by example. We have a lot of room to grow, but to prove that it can be done and that it does make a difference. Young people have meaningfully helped shape the work that we're doing through negotiations and inside events and all the ways that we engage in spaces like CSW. So I think exchanging this institutional knowledge within our own government, within the US, but also with our like-minded donor partners is absolutely key to ensuring child and youth engagement for the future. And like I said, this is something that we're learning, we're growing. a muscle that we're slowly building, right? But we are doing our best and we're trying to accept feedback and amending as we go. So spaces like this, organizations like PLAN, youth delegates and advocates like you are absolutely critical in helping us grow and do that better over time. So in the spirit of that sort of continued learning and information sharing, I want to turn it back to you, Samikshika, to share a bit of more examples of initiatives or models from other contexts or countries where youth and children have been effectively engaged in shaping agendas. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Whitney. It's inspiring and really learning its valuable way. So here are the initiatives and model contexts from other countries where youth and children have been effectively engaged in shaping agendas and youth-led projects. From starting with youth-led community projects, like campaigns like here in Nepal and other countries, there have been many campaigns, and here in Nepal we have Girls Out Loud campaigners, and youth in Nepal have initiated and led efforts to address local issues such as to end dowry systems, child marriage, anti-human trafficking, education, environment, and health. To end different kinds of menstrual discrimination, we youth are together across the world. Secondly, we have youth participation in decision making. Handing over manifesto papers, suggestion paper to stakeholders, partly involved in government consultations, advisory boards, and committees to provide the inputs on policies affecting them. Thirdly, following on it, youth advocacy campaigns countries in Nepal, like Plastic Man, Marriage After 20, they have been practicing and following the government policy to bring about the social change. Following on this, we have youth empowerment programs, various kinds of trainings, leadership skills development trainings, and opportunities for civic engagement and initiatives from youth leadership programs, empowering young peoples to become the agents of change in their community. There can be empowering young girls from art and poetry along with slogans. Different kinds of programs like mock youth parliament and establishing mock youth parliaments, creating them to engage in debate and policies, making them directly to government officials as a practice. So, following on this, social-based initiatives, online safety, peer educators, volunteers are the involvement of school students in decision makings within school and fostering a culture of participation and engagement from a young age. Community engagement platforms, workshop trainings and awareness campaigns to break the storming the norms, and innovation and entrepreneurship hubs recognizing the young minds. Nepal have been emergence of entrepreneurs and tailored for youth to provide the resource mentorship and the networking opportunities for youth, and various kinds of mental health awareness and supports provided here to break the stigma. So these are the things that we have been practicing to aim and addressing the social, economic, and environment challenge to make a better society. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Sorry, briefly just wanted to chime in and say thank you to Samikshia for your reflections and just the incredible holistic advocacy that you all are doing, really touching on empowerment, engagement, advocacy. It's incredible to see the way that you all are mobilizing. So thank you for your leadership. And back over to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Bob. It is of utmost importance to involve girls in initiatives that allow them to express their ideas and acquire leadership tools, as mentioned above. Because in these spaces, we collect their voices and the experience that allow us to write policies and pacts that reflect the reality of the girls. We're also joined by Gabriela Guadalupe Madero Jimenez, First Secretary at the Permanent Mission of Mexico to the United Nations. Gabriela Madero is a career diplomat. In her role, She observes gender and humanitarian files. She holds a master in international relations from the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico. During her 14 years in foreign service, she has been posted to the embassies of Mexico and China and Guatemala, as well as the consulates in San Francisco, California, and Tecoyuman, Guatemala. Before joining the foreign service, she co-founded the Center of Studies for Advancement of Women and Gender Equality, associated with the Mexican Congress, where she worked as a researcher. We also have Felicity, part of the youth task force. Felicity is a third-year law student at Addis Ababa University and a human rights activist. Her current areas of advocacy include eradicating gender-based violence, including online spaces, empowering young women and girls to assume leadership roles, and promoting sexual and reproductive health, rights and justice, including the evolution of harmful traditional practice like early marriage and female genital mutilation. In her spare time, she loves to compose poetry and read different books. Welcome, Felicity and Gabriela.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you for joining us, Gabriela. What concrete steps can world leaders take to positively impact adolescent girls and young women's futures and advance gender equality?
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation, and congratulations to Plan International on all the effort, enthusiasm, and outstanding work that you are doing for girls and adolescents. The Mexican government wishes you all the success that this wonderful cause deserves. Thank you, Felicity, for the question. I believe it is a very pertinent one, mainly in the context of all the intergovernmental processes that we are currently preparing for. So world leaders have a very important role, attending multilateral fora, adopting joint statements, saying that they will incorporate international commitments into their national plans or programs. We all know that, right? But we also know that sometimes, A, world leaders don't honor their word, and or B, all the reforms and changes that they promise to adapt to the national needs of their population aren't adapted wisely and don't get to have an impact in the real concrete life of girls and adolescents. I will share with you what I believe are some reasons for that. First of all, I must say that I will speak to you as a Mexican diplomat, yes, but mainly as a woman who some time ago was your age, had your concerns and your commitment to contribute to a better life for the present and future generations. In my experience, it is absolutely necessary that all the international instruments that world leaders subscribe, first of all, they have to be incorporated into local laws and mainly translated into specific and realistic public policies. If a political decision is not financed or included in the annual budget of a country through a public policy, then all the documents that the decision takers adopt at multilateral fora will not come to life and will not impact people's lives. Then the second is spreading or communicating these commitments. I think it's an essential aspect. If we don't have knowledge of our rights, it would be very hard for our voices to be heard. In that regard, world leaders, national and local leaders, they must implement information campaigns focused on making that information available, accessible, culturally coherent, and well, let's say in our modern terms, this information must be almost viral. And nowadays, that is not difficult, and it doesn't imply spending big amounts of money, but it's about being creative and knowing how to speak to young audiences. So we have budgeting of public policies. We have dissemination of clear and concise information. And the third aspect to impact adolescent girls and young women's future is education. Education to achieve new behavior patterns, to teach and educate boys how to live positive masculinities, to share responsibilities at home, education to know what are the rights that women, young women and girls are entitled, and very important, where to attend if those rights are violated. Summarizing the steps that, from my point of view as a career diplomat, world leaders must take to advance into gender and egalitarian societies is to really honor their international commitments, to implement them at a national level, and to be accountable for their actions and for their omissions. And that is exactly what Summit of the Future must be about. Thank you so much. Gracias. And I have a question for Felicity. Could you share examples of initiatives or models from other contexts or countries where youth and children have been effectively engaged in shaping agendas? Thank you for your response.
Thank you, Gabriela, for your answer, and thank you for your question. I believe She Leads is an excellent example of an initiative that advocates for the effective participation of youth, particularly girls and young women, in drafting agendas. She Leads is a joint program by Plan International Netherlands, Defense for Children, ECPAT, Femnet, Terrorism Netherlands, and Equal Measures 2030. The She Leads Consortium, funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, aims to increase the sustained influence of girls and young women on decision-making and transformation of gender norms in informal and formal institutions. Sharing my own experience, at the end of last year, with the help of Plan International's AU Liaison Office, I was part of a team that was working on the youth recommendation for AU's Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls. During the pre-consultative meeting we had, we were able to gather a large number of contributions from young people around the continent. Our proposals were then presented at the AU Conference of Positive Masculinity. Another excellent example is our cohorts engagement as CSW this year, in person and online. In addition to CSOs, governments are also taking necessary steps to make space for youth to define agendas. For example, the establishment of National Youth Council in my country, where youth are able to partake in decision-making and policy-making spaces, raise issues that concern them, and also exercise leadership. All this being said, I firmly believe we have a long way to go until we're able to effectively engage the voice of youth and children, particularly those from marginalized groups, and including those with intersecting marginalized identities.
Thank you so much, Felicity, for sharing your ideas and your thoughts and your enthusiasm with us. I totally agree with you in the need to include youth into decision-making processes. We saw this recently in the CSW negotiations that you just mentioned, and the risk of not having young women and girls involved into these intergovernmental processes is too high, because adult life is very different. I mean, the perspective or the things that you think that people at certain ages need, it's totally different from what they believe that they need right now. The world has changed a lot since mainly the pandemic. We all know that. So instead of trying to decodify the world of the youth today, we must include you into the processes that the governments are conducting. That's the best way to know what you need and to take the concrete steps. That was your first question, and I really think it's a very pertinent one. I thank you so much also for mentioning She Leads. I had no idea of that initiative, but I will take a look. It sounds really interesting. And well, thank you, Felicity, and over to you, Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you all for your reflections, and thank you to Plan International, but also to our partner UNICEF for supporting our work. During this event, we have heard about many experiences that reflect the diversity of girls' lives, with a focus on topics such as education, technology, and all the importance of safeguarding and protecting the rights and well-being of girls. I feel deeply proud and moved by the commitment we have to build a more equitable society. Today, we not only hear the voices of the speakers, but also the lives of millions of girls around the world. The Girls Pact represents recommendations and effective solutions from different critical areas, such as education, violence prevention, sexual and reproductive health rights, climate actions, and political participation. We invite all present to take actions that contribute to a society where lives of the girls are fairer and freer, inciting free and equality education that allows girls to know they can be leaders, creating policies to prevent all forms of violence, taking into account different contexts and mediums, both digital and in person, without forgetting the importance of sexual and reproductive health and rights, including them in prevention plans and ensuring access to service. Thank you so much for this amazing session. Now, we are going to present the partner organizations for this work. Okay. Plan International and UNICEF will also like to extend our thanks to several of our partner organizations who have supported our work on the Girls Pact for the future. We are joined by many of our partners today. First, we have Ailey Zhao from UNICEF's Global Girls Leaders Advisory Group.
Thank you so much for passing it to me, Claudia. I hope you all can hear me well. What a terrific and brilliant conversation so far. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Aaliyah, and I'm a member of UNICEF's Global Girl Leaders Advisory Group, which is comprised of girls leaders from over 11 countries who are doing transformative work when it comes to gender equality in their respective regions. I want to take a moment and just echo the sentiment shared before about the current state of girls' rights and how world leaders and policies globally are not only failing girls, but allowing them to fall through the cracks. It is up to all of us, and I deeply appreciate the Girls Pact and its attention to details on key issues that are impacting girls' livelihoods right now. Education and technology may be one of the best ways for us to leverage girls' rights and advocate for support and resources throughout their academic career. In a rapidly changing world with technology advancing, it is crucial to not leave behind girls in primary and secondary schooling. As we know, basic education may disrupt the cycles of poverty. Furthering this, within the advancement of technology and usage of social media, for many girls who have access to these platforms, it can be another unfortunate way to experience digital gender-based violence and cyber harassment. When developing laws, it is crucial, if not important, to ensure that we are all including girls in the initial conversations on analyzing how policies can impact girls, and in many instances, how technological advancements and the nullifying of girls' autonomy can have a negative impact on their independence. One of the most insightful things I've noticed as being a member of the Global Girl Leaders Advisory Group, and even from the conversations today, is that girls already are doing their part to make change. So it's up to stakeholders, leaders, philanthropists, and so many other people to finally follow through with our promises for a better and more just world for girls globally. Thank you so much for this marvelous conversation, and I'll pass it back to you, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Alea, for those powerful words. we now have Amrita Paul, the Director of Violence Prevention, Education and Youth Outreach at Global Affairs Canada. Welcome, Amrita.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here today representing Canada at this wonderful event, and thrilled with the opportunity to listen and to hear directly from such an impressive group of youth. Many thanks for that. So Canada is supportive of the Girls Pact for the Future. We see the pact as providing starting points and greater actions that we can take and to which we can advocate as well. It outlines what youth envision for the future, a gender equal world, which is one that I also want to live in and I want my daughter to live in. There are so many important points that have been raised in the pact that resonate, including your call to eliminate barriers to education, especially in times of conflict and crisis, to provide supportive measures to pregnant girls and young mothers, the development of much needed gender transformative curriculums, and strengthening awareness for individuals to recognize and to report violence. Your vision, recommendations, and ideas are powerful and they're very, very timely. They align well with Canada's priorities outlined in our feminist international assistance policy. We know that girls and youth overall are powerful agents of change, and we're committed to amplifying your ideas and your voices. At the upcoming Summit of the Future, Canada aims to support a concrete, action-oriented pact which places the empowerment of women and girls at the center of all of our development efforts. We'll look to the Girls Pacts for the Future to guide us in these efforts. We want to keep the direct conversation with you open. It's important for us. For Canada, one of our key priorities this fall, in partnership with Zambia, is the renegotiation of the resolution on child, early and forced marriage at the UN General Assembly Third Committee. As we prepare for this negotiation and consider ways to accelerate action to end this harmful practice, we will strive to incorporate your ideas for the future. We believe that policies and programs should be shaped by youth with lived experiences, and we want to seek to encourage youth leadership in decision-making spaces. Thank you for sharing and for inviting us to listen. Keep advocating and pushing us all to do better at facilitating your participation and amplifying your voices at key moments, but also beyond that. Your commitment, your advocacy, and your great ideas are needed to make change and improve our world, to make it the world we all want to live in. Thank you so very much, and keep up your great work and your enthusiasm. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. We now invite to Rita Muyambo, Program Specialist at UN Women, to share some words. Welcome.
Hello, Claudia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Great.
All right, brilliant. Thank you so much, Claudia. Let me start by going back to the launch of your report, where there was a quote on the demand on co-creation of a positive future, where you said, where one of your participants said, decision makers listen, but they don't do anything. And then also to Asil, when Asil was speaking, she also emphasized that you want to be taken seriously. So I just want to say, Claudia, Natalie, Alemia, Serafina, Ya, Jenny, Isabel, we hear you, we see you. So I would like to acknowledge and applaud all the girls in all your diversities and intersectional identities who are in this call, and those who participated in drafting the Girls Pact, and those who could not join because of multiple challenges. I also want to acknowledge those adolescent girls in conflict and humanitarian crisis, and just saying again, we see you. So the Summit of the Future, I think it's a unique opportunity to shape a more networked and solidarity-based multilateralism to create a future that is just, that is fair, peaceful, and sustainable for all you girls. And this Pact for the Future, your pact, is a clear demonstration of your leadership, your voice, and your agency in an effort to contributing to transforming the United Nations and its systems so that we are better able to serve your needs and perspective globally. So your recommendations, particularly those calling for accountability, enhanced resources for education and technology, alongside improved disaggregated data and robust support for sexual and reproductive health and rights, are fundamental to advance gender equality. Your advocacy for increased participation in intergovernmental processes to ensure that perspectives of young people are integral in decision-making processes, moving beyond mere consultation to meaningful involvement, is extremely crucial. So at UN Women, we are committed to your leadership, to all girls' leadership. We will continue creating meaningful and safe spaces for effective policy discussions, including facilitating dialogues between young advocates like you and decision makers through initiatives like our Adolescent Town Hall series. These platforms are designed not only to foster dialogues, but to ensure that these discussions translate into accountable and impactful actions and reflect your aspirations and contributions. So as we move forward, let this Girls Pact serve not only as a blueprint, but a call to action for all of us. We stand with you not only in celebration today, but also in ongoing collaboration, and we look forward to working together to realize the goals set forth in this pact and beyond. Thank you for your exceptional leadership and for inspiring us all with your commitment to a more responsive and inclusive global framework for girls. Thank you so much, Claudia and all.
Thank you, Rita. We also have Shani Dharmadesha, Senior Director of the Global Partnership and Initiatives at the UN Foundation. Welcome, Arshani.
Thank you so much, Claudia. I mean, I'm so excited to be here. This was such a terrific session. And I just want to share that the Girls Pact is such an inspiring example of youth leadership. And we just need more examples of this in every part of the system of the UN. So I commend all of you who've been part of this process that can help transform our world into one where gender equality isn't just a goal, but a reality for all girls and all girls into the future. And I think there was one sentence that really grabbed me when I read the Girls Pact, and I just want to read it because I just loved it so much and going to be using it in so much of my work, which was a quote by you that says, "We are the voices of our generation. We are young, resilient, and committed to a better future." And I'd love to hear that, those two sentences throughout the Summit of the Future mobilization. And what I also found so valuable about the Girls Pact were there were just such crisp, tangible, concrete actions that all leaders should take into account when considering the next 30 years of work that needs to be done to achieve gender equality, but also tackle so many other issues that many communities face across climate to digital transformation. So it was incredibly powerful. I want to say on behalf of UN Foundation that I lead a program that's called Our Future Agenda, which is dedicated to young people and future generations. And we're so proud of our partnership with Plan International through the Unlock the Future Coalition, which brings together some of the world's largest youth-led organizations to reach 1 billion people worldwide. We're going to take this Girls Pact, we're going to implement it into everything that we can do across a funders collective that looks at financing, unlocking better financing for young people, a digital platform that actually engages young people and actually encourage the young leaders that help put this pact together to actually participate with us in this engine room, and a series of national town halls where we'll be actually asking young people, what do they want for their future. And so I hope we can continue this engagement together to really unlock the future for every girl around the world. Thank you so much, Claudia. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Shani. We're so joined by Natasha Harris-Hart, leader of youth movement and feminist leadership at UNGAI. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you, Claudia. I would like to first acknowledge the unceded and unsurrendered Indigenous land of the Lenape people that I'm currently speaking to you from. So on behalf of the UN Girls Education Initiative, which is a partnership that was developed by the then Secretary General Kofi Annan over 24 years ago to advance girls' education, we would like to thank you, the young leaders and the trailblazers who created the Girls Pact. We would also like to apologize to you for the current state of the world. As you rightly state, the world we have created is one of rising hate and division, escalating conflicts, deepening inequalities, catastrophic climate, humanitarian emergencies, and a backslide in the human rights we fought so hard to secure. The future depends on transforming all of this. As you say in the Girls Pact, to do this, you and future generations need access to safe, inclusive, and gender transformative education. We want to see the same feminist future as you. A world without stereotypes, a world without violence, a world that is built through an intersectional feminist approach, and most importantly, a world that is co-created in meaningful, funded partnership with girl and youth-led organizations. The UN Girls Education Initiative will stand and work with you to advance your recommendations. And to member states, we also share an urgent message. We must commit that present and future generations have the education they need to transform the deep inequalities that have been created for them. We must commit to safe, inclusive, gender transformative education for all, one that challenges harmful norms and gender binaries, one that teaches the values of non-discrimination, respect, and equality, one that raises critical consciousness about the root causes of injustice and systems of oppression. Only then can we begin to imagine a different future. And together we can shift the power to see the feminist future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Next, we have Jose Roberto Luna, technical specialist, adolescent and youth, lead on adolescent girls and ending child marriage at UNFPA.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Muchas gracias. Es un gusto verte. On behalf of UNFPA, I'm so glad to be here together with Plan, with UNICEF, and many other partners. And just to say that from UNFPA, we fully support your Girls Pact for the Future, which is already from the title, disrupted, which means that you are not asking for favors, you're not asking for permission, you're already proposing something that is shaking the power. For us, youth participation, including adolescent girls' rights, bodily autonomy, and decision-making is core to our UNFPA mandate and what we do. It's core to our global strategy for adolescents and youth, My Body, My Life, My World, but also for our gender strategy that is asking for agency, for choices, and also for access. And that access comes with all the asks and proposals that you are bringing through this document, the research supporting your policy asks. And as UNFPA, I want to say that we stand with you towards the summit of the future, but also and beyond, because we know that it's not going to end here. It's not going to end in September. We will take your demands along with the ICPD 30 Cotonou Youth Action Agenda, where you also have a presence there together with a diversity of young people from more than 130 countries. And when I compare what you are proposing and asking for, you can see how young people are asking for more or less the same things: access to sexual and reproductive health and rights, radical inclusion, including gender equality, human rights, to put an end to gender-based violence and harmful practices, including female genital mutilation and child marriage. Education is also reinforced, access to CSC, meaningful participation, and how we can create a resilient future for all amid all the crises that we are looking for and living. As UNFPA, we will go and work together with you as partners and allies, and we will put these agendas together on our way forward. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for bringing your voices towards this important agenda. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you for your words of support, Jose. We are grateful to also be joined by Anshu Mohan, Senior Strategic Advisor at the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Care. Welcome, Anshu.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Dear girls, dear girls, thank you for inviting me for your event. My apologies, my name seemed to be different, but I'll fix it. But it's more important to pass this message on to you, and also to tell you that also to congratulate you that the demands in the Pact of the Future are very critical to move this agenda forward, to also make sure that they are woven into the conversations of the Summit of the Future. We at PMNCH are very committed to support, to amplify, to work with you, to walk in solidarity, to walk hand in hand, to make sure that you get the gender balanced world that you are asking for. So last year, we worked on the What Young People Want a campaign, and we would want to add the voices of that 1.6 million young people from around the world who have asked for same things. And as we move into the Summit of the Future discourse, we bring to you a tool that can absolutely help mobilize things. This tool is the return on investment of investing in adolescent girls. Yes, it's a moral right to invest in young girls. It's a moral imperative to invest in young people. But there are huge economic returns, huge economic returns. And if the powers that be do not realize that they will miss out the returns on these investments, it's their loss. However, it is good to know these figures. It's good to use these figures for your advocacy. So just to give you a little glimpse of what the world writ large stands to lose if they don't invest in young people, if they don't invest in adolescents. So the world will lose about 20.5 trillion US dollars over a period of 12 years if there is no investment, or if it continues to invest poorly in adolescent girls. We all know limited educational opportunities and barriers to completing class 12 leads to a huge loss, amounting to about 15 trillion US dollars. Very simple investments in SRHR needs of young girls can lead to much more returns. So not only is it a moral right or a moral imperative to invest in girls, but it makes economic sense as well. And the sooner our member states take that fact into account, the better it is for the world and for the young people who go into this world. We are, of course, extremely supportive of the Pact of the Future, of the Girls Pact of the Future. And as PMNCH, we stand shoulder to shoulder in moving this forward. Apart from the advocacy tool in the form of the investment case, we also have a guidance called the MAIE, which is Meaningful Adolescent and Youth Engagement, which we are working on to make sure that partners, allies use those guidelines to create those safe spaces, which are so important for us to hear from you. They are the enabling environments which gives you the driving seat, and we would want to support that. So there are many things that we could do together. PMNCH continues to work on adolescent well-being, and you are 50% of that adolescent population group. We will continue to work on the 1.8 billion campaign, which moves forward this agenda. And this agenda is very much supportive of the demands of the Girls Pact for the future. Education for girls, prevention from harmful practices, making sure that you're supported, making sure that you have access to employment, you have access to employability and education. And also you're connected to your peers. There is less gatekeeping, there is protection from violence. So we continue to support you. And as a committed partner in all the work that you're doing, we are so immensely proud to be here. We are so immensely supportive of this. And once again, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to show our solidarity. And we promise you, we are with you. We are marching with you hand in hand. Thank you very much, Claudia. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to thank all the adolescent girls and the girls who worked on the Pact of the Future and all the hard work that has gone into making sure that we have taken into account those who are not present at this meeting, especially girls in humanitarian crises. Thank you so much, Claudia, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Anshu. Last but certainly not the least, we have Joyce Segwedi, co-chair and executive director of the Adolescents Girls Investment Fund. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak on this platform. It's such an honor. And congratulations to all the girls and the young women and the young people who contributed to the Pact of the Future. I find it extremely inspiring, just looking at the key issues that have been raised around education, around gender-based violence, around climate change, and speaking from Nairobi, where we're currently experiencing the wrath of nature because of the floods. It's just really inspiring. And I want to share my support and our support as the Adolescent Girls Investment Plan to just support the Pact for the Future and to leverage our influence, to leverage our power, to speak to the policymakers to support the Girls Pact for the Future. I especially want to just applaud and celebrate the fact that the Pact is calling for a reprioritization of education as a tool for advancing gender equality. And I want to use this platform to just urge the world to invest in empowering girls and young women and to advocate for their access to comprehensive education. I also want to use this opportunity just to rally everyone on this call and everyone who will listen to this call later on, that we must amplify the voices and the lived experiences of girls and young women in their diversities, and also to just create more platforms where they can influence policy, they can influence mindsets and change social norms. I'm also really inspired that the Pact acknowledges climate change. Once again, I am speaking from Nairobi, where we'll be hosting the UN Civil Society conference in the run-up to the Summit of the Future. And we are feeling the impacts of climate change. And we do know that girls and young women are disproportionately impacted by the impacts of climate change. And so I will use, and we will use as AGIP, our space to influence the decision makers and also to create spaces for girls and young women to be able to demonstrate their skills and their leadership, not just for the future, but also for today. And I invite, again, everyone to stand with us as we stand as allies and champions for girls and young women and youth. And finally, as the Adolescent Girls Investment Plan, and as a member, as a Kili Dada, we will continue to mobilize and drive political commitment to gather evidence, basically to improve the outcomes for adolescent girls and young women, and to continually champion for resources to be invested in girls and young women so that we act now to safeguard the future. Thank you.
Thank you to all our partners for their support, for showing up for us today. We hope to continue work together towards the summit for the future and beyond. Now, we're moving into a question and answer segment where you have the chance to ask the girls involved in cheating. The Girls Pact, any questions that you might have. If you have questions, please write it in the question and answer box. As we get your questions, we would like to revisit our interactive wall. Please feel free to share your tours on the Girls Pact and your experience to how this event. Please don't forget to add the hashtag #FutureGirls1 as you share on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and your post will appear on the wall. Otherwise, you can scan the QR code in the top right corner of the screen to post directly on the wall. This social wall will be up for a few weeks. Now, back to our Q&A session. Next question for all our panelists. What are the next steps after the publication of this report to take it forward and ensure it's heard? This question is for all or of panelists.
I would like to answer on the behalf of the Youth Task Force. What are we going to do with the pact? So basically, I would say we already started working on it. Some of the Youth Task Force already met some, I would say, member states, some decision makers. We kind of socialized the pact. We talked about it. We talked a little bit about, you know, our demands in the pact. And hopefully in September, 4 of us will be in the Summit of the Future, attending in person, and we will try our best to take this important pact and to take our demands that we wrote here, and you know, put them into action, talk about them, and make them known to everyone. So, because we deeply believe that this pact is very important to all activists and could be a really, and I quote, as was said before, a stepping stone for youth activists and activists of all ages alike.
Okay, thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you so much, Aishel, for your answer and for the clear and well-to-hold answer. We're reaching the end of today's session, but before we end, I wanted to say a few words. The Girls Pact is of paramount importance as it serves as a platform for presenting recommendations and effective solutions aimed at addressing critical issues affecting girls globally. It highlights the diverse experience and challenge faced by girls in areas such as education, violence prevention, sexual and reproductive health rights, and climate actions and political participation. By consolidating these recommendations, the Girls Pact emphasizes the urgent need for concerted action to ensure the rights and well-being of girls are safeguarded and protected. From Plan International and UNICEF, thank you all for coming, and thank you again to all our partners. Thank you so much to everyone.